This is Gene DeLisio with a featured sports interview from WDLB and WOSQ. Two young men from Marshfield are preparing for the 2019 baseball season. Both did quite well in minor league baseball in 2018. Marshfield's Daulton Varsho set for another year with the Arizona Diamondbacks farm system, and Elliot Ashbeck returning to the San Diego Padres organization in 2019. Daulton Varsho primarily caught in 2018 for the Diamondbacks Class A farm club at Visalia, California in the California League, and did quite well, batting .286 with 11 home runs and 44 RBIs in 80 games for Visalia.
Well, I started out there, was a little nervous right away, but kind of making that jump from rookie kind of to high A and kind of skipping over low A. But I felt very confident. They sent me and a couple other guys I played with in Hillsboro last year up there, so kind of gave me a little bit of a safety of just having them around and kind of learning. But we had all new coaches besides our hitting coach, who Franklin Stubbs, he kind of followed us to Hillsboro. So it was nice to have a couple guys that I knew going up there, but our manager, Joe Mather, was really good at getting to know him and kind of getting to know what he was all about right away. So kind of got my feet wet right away and got to be able to have start. And the year went well right away. Got able to be was close to being able to be on the All-Star team, but then I got hurt with fracturing my hamate, and then went through that process of rehab, and then got to go back to Visalia for the last month and a half, and we got to go to the playoffs and make it to the championship game, but then lost to Rancho Cucamonga at the end, but had a lot of fun.
How would you assess the way you played this season?
I thought I did really well. Kind of held my own and learned a little bit about myself, got a little bit better at plate discipline and getting my pitch to hit. And then beyond the plate, I mean, I'm always learning new stuff with catching. Our catching coordinator, who recently got a job with the Reds, J.R. House, he did a really good job at helping me and trying to get my body to be in the right position at catching and trying to be a little bit more successful in a lot of the framing metrics that are out that we are currently being graded on at all times. So it was a process to get through that and kind of get my body in the right position, and we did a lot of things different with catching.
You mentioned some of the coaches you had at Visalia this year. At this point of your career, how important is that coaching role and what you're learning from them as you go forward in your career?
It's huge because every night they are the one that's kind of grading us, and that's kind of who we learn from. Even though that coordinators come in and out all the time and they can help us, but they're only there for a short period of time. So those are the coaches that are kind of shaping us into the baseball players that the Arizona Diamondbacks want us to be. So they play a huge role in trying to be able to frame us and our mind and our mentality into who the Diamondbacks want us to be in the future.
Now, there's always been speculation about you moving positions, and I think that has really seemed to die down this last year or so, because the more we hear about the Diamondbacks is the more impressed they are with you as a catcher. So let's talk about that for a few moments, and going forward, how you feel about catching, how they look at you and their plans.
I mean, I feel like they have me kind of being a starter eventually, but J.R. House, even though he left, but he envisioned me to be a starting catcher in a couple of years, and I'm hoping that I can kind of switch their minds of being there in a couple more, a little bit shorter period. But all I got to do is just keep working hard and being able to be prepared and mentally ready to make that jump to the big league level, because it's a little bit different, being around a little bit better talent all the time and understanding different game plans. And so it'll be interesting this spring training if I can get around a couple of the big league pitchers and kind of get their mind and pick their brain a little bit and see what they're about, and hopefully that I can learn a little bit something from them, and maybe I can keep furthering my career and hopefully be up there in a couple of years.
Daulton, do you see any evidence that there's more of an acceptance in baseball to the more athletic, quicker catcher like you would be, rather than the big, lumbering, strong guy that we used to have behind the plate?
Yeah, you're starting to see a little bit more smaller catchers out there because they move a little bit better, be able to block and get in a little bit better body positions. But there are still those bigger guys that are out there that are kind of being able to move their body a little bit different to get a little bit more pitches. There's a guy, Tyler Flowers, from the Atlanta Braves, and I think he was the second highest grade of making balls look like strikes. So there are guys out there that are doing some things a little bit different, but I think a lot of it has to do with the respect that you get from the pitching staff. I feel like a lot of guys start trusting you, and that's where you get the respect from your pitchers. So that's what is the big thing, I think, with Diamondbacks, is being able to get that trust factor and making the pitchers want you to be behind the plate instead of another catcher.
How do you go about that as you start a season with a new pitching staff, earning that confidence and trust from your pitching staff?
Yeah, it was a little tough for me, actually, from Visalia this year, because in spring training I actually wasn't with all those pitchers. So when I was put on that roster, it was a little bit different because I was catching a lot of guys from the Kane County staff, so I didn't really get that whole trust factor going into Visalia. So I had to earn that of being able to catch their bullpens, being on time, trying to watch some film, just even talking to them and just getting to be their friend and knowing what they're about. So there's all these different factors that work into trying to be able to get that respect and trust that they're looking for. And I think I did a really good job of trying to getting to know them and what they're about. So even though the multiple guys keep filtering out here and there, but I think it was a big thing for me to kind of just get to know them a little more.
When we perhaps think about catching and how you're graded as a catcher, we may think most about some of the mechanics of the game, blocking the ball and throwing guys out, things like that. But how much do the Diamondbacks emphasize your handling of a pitching staff and how they grade you?
So we have 5 different things that we as the Diamondbacks organization follow and actually trust, and of the pitching, and knowing the pitching staff is number 1. So if you don't get that trust and knowing them, you're not even on the radar for them. So, but framing is second. Usually hitting and all of blocking and that stuff is towards the bottom, because what baseball's kind of working into is a lot of a framing metric game. They're trying to steal as many strikes as possible. So we are kind of harping on that. But now that they came up with a blocking metric this year, so now that's another thing that we're worried about. But no, it's the trust factor is really big for us, and I think that all starts with your coaches and kind of meshing everybody together. Even though that multiple like minor league teams all have multiple catchers, so it's not just that one catcher that can only have that trust factor. It's all these catchers that have to earn that. And so I think that's a big thing to learn that from the minor leagues, so that when you get to the big leagues and you get that starting position, or if you are that backup guy, that you still have that trust and you learn a lot of stuff from the guys that are above you and below you.
How about the hitting aspect of your game? How did that improve this year?
I think my plate discipline really went up. Saw a little bit better pitching. Even though my average was down, I still hit balls really hard. I had a lot of line drive outs. So, I mean, a lot of it has to go down to the luck of the game. And but I'm still improving, working myself into getting a better position at the plate. So, I mean, baseball is all about change. So you have to do something to change, especially when you get to more higher levels. Even though you got there, but there's still always something that you can work on to improve. So that was a little bit something I had to keep working on, is getting my body and being able to be a little bit more, take a kind of step back from aggressiveness and just being a little bit more patient. So we'll see how things go this year. I mean, we're working on it and can only improve from there.
It just occurred to me, I'm not sure this is true or not, but the reputation has been over the years that the California League, and a lot of baseball in California, is more of a low-scoring game because the ballparks are bigger, the air is heavier. Was that something you saw last year, or did you have to adjust your game to that?
Yeah, I mean, the ballparks were bigger. A lot of guys say that the balls fly farther, but there was only 2 places that I thought that the ball was kind of out of whack a little bit, where in Lancaster, winds were blowing out 40-plus miles an hour every game, and that's just the way their ballpark is, and down the line just 360, so you still got to hit it for it to go out. But you do see a lot of pitchers kind of having higher ERA a little bit, just because in Lancaster it kind of skyrockets. But you do see a lot of hitters change their approach a little bit because they think that ball's going to fly a little bit better, but it doesn't. So overall, I think I had a really good year in just trying to be able to calm my mindset down when you got to those situations where, like, you saw that there was a lot of winds going on, and just trying to be able to calm the nerves a little bit and just kind of slow yourself down.
Now, you did suffer that unfortunate injury during the season, the hand injury. Tell us about that and how that set you back.
It set me back a month and a half. Wish I could have played and been with my team there, but learned a lot about myself, just being able to go through the rehab process and trying to be able to be patient with myself. It was very hard for me because I struggled right away and just trying to be able to feel normal again. And it was like, will this ever feel normal? And it took me a while to be able to trust it. And my rehab coordinator there, he was like, you just got to stop thinking about it and just be able to trust it, because it was my throwing hand too. Mm-hmm. So he was playing catch with me and he goes, just let it go. And even though the first time it hurt really bad, but after a while I was like, okay, it's getting better, and then better. So eventually I just got over it and started playing really well, and then got to play a couple games down in Arizona, played 3 games, and then got shipped back to Visalia to finish off the season.
Guys who are injured over a long period of time sometimes say that helps them. They can take a step back and look at the game and look at their position in it, kind of learn more about the game and their position, what they're doing. Did you have the chance to do that while you were sidelined?
Yeah, I got to actually look back and be like, okay, what can I do different to finish out my year? Like, what can I improve to be better? So actually I got the time to go back and look at a lot of the catching stuff that I was doing and try and improve a little bit, because our catching coordinator was down there and I got to work with him a lot, and just about what I could do different to further my success of being behind the plate. So I actually got that time to be able to do that, instead of when I'm playing all year, you don't really get that much time. So I actually instead of just sitting there and pouting about my injury, I actually try to get better and be able to go out and be able to do something, even though that I was still sidelined. So just trying to be able to do stuff like that and further your knowledge about baseball, that kind of helped me out too. So I got that time to be able to do that.
Now, you also spent some time in the instructional league this fall. Tell us about that and how that helped improve your game.
Yeah, I got to be down there in the instructional league for a week or so, and then I got to go to the fall league. So that was an interesting experience being down there, because I mean it's a mixture of AAA and AA guys, and there was a few high A guys that were mixed in, and I was one of those guys. So it was very fun to learn and be around different guys from different levels, because they've played a little bit longer and have a little bit more knowledge about the game, and you just learn from other people just by watching. And down there I wasn't playing every day. You get to play maybe 3 or 4 times a week because there's so many guys, but just being down there and being around that good of talent all the time, it was a lot of fun, and just trying to be able to match up and see where you're at against all these other guys. And I thought I did pretty well. Went through a little funk at the end, but it was all right. I mean, still a learning process and trying to be able to get out of the struggling, and it was fun just to be around all those guys.
It seems to me, Daulton, you spend a lot of time talking to people and learning about the game from other people. Do you find other prospects approach the game the way you do and trying to learn as much about the game as possible?
Yeah, you find guys who are at the same wavelength as you, but you also find guys who are a little bit more lazy and lackadaisical and don't want to. They're okay with being a minor leaguer. And so you try to separate yourself away from those guys, and but you do find yourself around some more guys who are trying to succeed, and it's competition. We're all trying to get to the big leagues, and it might not be on the same team, so it always shows that you're trying to work to get to there, and it's a competition, and you're just trying to further your success in your career. So the more you talk and the more you learn, even though you might not take it and use it in your game, it's still nice to know what somebody else does that maybe it could help you in the future.
Now, how about 2019? Any expectations or thoughts you have about what the season holds for you coming up?
It'll be interesting to see what they have for me. I'm hoping to start in AA. We'll see where things go, but that would be my go-to, is just trying to be able to get there and have a full good season and be healthy for a whole season. So it will be fun. I think they have a good plan for me, and I trust everything that they're doing for me.
And it seems like they do have a lot of confidence in you, and I'm sure that's appreciative of you as well. How do you feel about the Arizona organization, how they've been to you so far?
They're awesome. I mean, they've done everything for me to try to help me succeed and further my career. So I can't thank them enough. And they gave me the opportunity by drafting me. So, but they put me in really good spots to succeed, and they put me in really good places to be able to compete and challenge myself. So I really can't say enough about them.
I do want to ask you one final question, Daulton. That is, you did see Elliot Ashbeck pitch, I'm sure, quite a few times last year, being in the same league. How did you feel about the way Elliot had recovered and responded from his surgery?
I thought he did really well. Looked a little bit better, and I've been throwing with him this offseason. He's looking so much better this offseason than last offseason because he was just coming back, and his ball looks like it's coming out a little bit smoother and a little bit better. And so I'm glad that he's being successful and trying to getting to where he's going at. And he's in a tough farm system. I give him a lot of credit because he's got a really good head on his shoulders, and he's fighting for a spot. And I hope he can get a starting role this year because I know he was in a relieving role a lot this past year in Lake Elsinore. So I'm rooting for him to get that starting role, hopefully in AA or AAA, wherever he gets landed at.
Marshfield's Daulton Varsho, who hopes to play for the Arizona Diamondbacks AA Farm Club at Jackson, Tennessee in 2019. Meanwhile, Marshfield's Elliot Ashbeck also pitched much of last year at another ball club in the California League, the Lake Elsinore Storm, the Class A farm club of the San Diego Padres. Elliot made 35 appearances for Lake Elsinore and was 4-2 with a 2.44 earned run average. He then was advanced to the AA farm club at San Antonio, where he was 1-2 with a 7.50 ERA in 7 appearances.
Looking back on it now, I'd say it was, a really successful year. Unfortunately, the last 3 weeks or so in AA didn't go the way, I had planned. I threw the ball really, really well, really consistently, pretty much throughout my whole, 4-ish months in High A in Lake Elsinore. It was good. I felt like I bounced back from a poor outing well, strung together a lot of good outings and really just kind of felt comfortable on the mound again for the first time in, a long time, with missing the 1.5 years and then the small little bit I got to throw again in 2017. It felt nice to kind of get into a rhythm of outings and one outing to the next and building off of them. And unfortunately, when I got moved up, things didn't really go my way. I didn't throw the ball very well. I kind of ran out of gas, which, can happen. It was disappointing nonetheless, but, really being the first time that I had gone through the 6-month season since I'd been a pro with, the injuries shortening a few of them, I think I'm taking it as a learning experience of things I can do differently to be able to last and keep my strength all the way through, the month of August and not kind of hit that wall and die down a little bit like I did this past year. My stuff just wasn't as crisp in the month of August, and with the bump to AA, the hitters are better, and they lay off certain stuff that maybe they don't in A ball, and you're just going to have to work harder to beat them and be more precise. And I wasn't able to do that for that 3-week stretch, although it's a small sample size. Like I said, it was disappointing, but I'm looking forward to going back this year and proving that was a fluke, and that I'm good enough to bounce back and make the necessary adjustments to continue to climb.
Tell us about how the year went for you last year in regards to the elbow surgery, coming off that, and how that affected the way you were used last season.
So in spring training, they kind of stretched me out to 3-4-ish innings, not really knowing if they were going to use me as a starter or reliever. And then kind of as camp went all the way through, it kind of became clear that I was probably going to be more of like a swingman type, be a long reliever, especially early in the year before our starters got all the way stretched out to 100 pitches. So I kind of did that early. Would do a lot of like 2- and 3-inning outings in the innings 5, 6, and 7, and then started to throw pretty strongly and kind of established myself as one of the more reliable arms in our bullpen, and then kind of started to throw more setup type stuff. And I think I had a few saves in there. And in High A, we don't really have hard defined roles of this guy's our closer, this guy's our setup man. So it kind of rotates on just an availability basis of we at that level we don't really throw guys on back-to-back nights unless, they happen to only throw like 8 pitches or something that night before. So I got opportunities to throw in a lot of different situations out of the bullpen, and really kind of became comfortable out of the bullpen with, coming in with runners on base or coming in clean innings. It didn't really matter. By, about 6 weeks in, I had kind of done a little bit of everything and felt comfortable doing it. And so I would imagine that's probably what I'll be doing going forward, barring, an injury to someone, because we have such a deep system that we have a lot of young, talented starters that, they get the innings, the starting spots. There's only 5 or 6 on a team, and they get those because they're kind of priority guys. And I get that, and I'm fully aware of how, the business of it works. If, they give a guy a 7-figure bonus out of the draft, that guy's going to take developmental priority and get starting spots, and that's fine. There's bullpen pitchers are important, pieces to teams as well, and there's a lot of different ways to make the big leagues. I did actually get an opportunity to spot start in AA. Unfortunately, it didn't go exceptionally well. I think I gave up 4 in 3 innings. But again, that was it. Didn't really feel like myself then. It was just, kind of ran out of gas, and things didn't go well for me in that short stint in AA. But I would imagine I'll be back in my comfort zone in the bullpen this year and be fresh going into the season and be ready to take care of business.
How about some areas that you feel you progressed as a pitcher this year?
Yeah, I felt like I really got back my control. Something I take a great deal of pride in is not beating myself. I'm not going to be a guy who's throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour, so I can't really get away with walking a guy or a couple guys to rely on being able to strike the next 2 or 3 guys out. So I take a great deal of pride on giving away no free bases. And, I think with the exception of a 2-week stretch in May where I think I walked like 8 or 9 guys, I think I only walked like 17 or 18 guys on the whole season. So other than that, I walked very, very few, less than 2 guys per 9 innings pitched. And, my goal is just to make, the offense string together at least 2, if not 3 hits to be able to score. And that's very, very difficult to do if you just look at the percentages of baseball. A guy is really successful hitting 300, well, he's getting out 7 out of 10 times, so I'll take my chances of having a team try to string together, 3 hits in a row to be able to score just a single run off of me every time. So I really felt like I kind of got back to my basics of that, and also, refined some of my secondary pitches to strike some more guys out. I think I struck out close to 10 guys per 9 inning and had a strikeout to walk of close to 5 to 1, which is pretty good for my standards, and I think most people's standards. So, those are the things that I felt like I kind of got back to after 2017, only throwing that 20 or so innings that I threw. It was just kind of a small sample size, and I just needed more reps and more mound time to kind of get back that feel that comes with pitching over the course of a 6-month season.
Are you at the point, Elliot, where there still is some question as to where your future lies in terms of starting or relieving with this organization?
Yes and no. I don't really know if there's question. I think they know that I can start if need be, but I don't necessarily think it's a priority to make me a starter, if that makes sense. Like I said, we have a very, very deep and talented system. I think it was MLB.com or Baseball America just came out. We have 4 of the game's top 10 left-handed pitching prospects and a bunch more right-handed. We just have a extremely deep and talented system, and it's hard to find, spots to do that if you aren't one of those high-priority guys, and that's fine. Like I said, there's 13 pitcher spots on a team, so there's plenty of ways to contribute, and you just need to find your role and embrace that role and do your best in it when your number is called, and whether that's in long relief, late relief, middle relief, or kind of a swingman, spot starter, whatever. I can kind of do it all, I guess. I haven't had a full extended period of starting in pro ball, but did it for 2 of my 3 years in college and feel comfortable doing that and being on that 5 or 6 day routine. And so whatever it is they ask, I'll be ready to do, because that part is kind of out of my control. I can just be ready for what I can be ready for.
As you mentioned, you were promoted during the season to San Antonio, the AA Farm Club, and didn't feel you pitched your best there. But I want to ask you not so much about how you performed, but what is that like for a young man to get that promotion during the season? I imagine logistically, it's not like you're flying from Chicago to New York. To go from Lake Elsinore to San Antonio, or maybe wherever they are on the road, must be quite difficult. What's that jump like during the season?
Yeah, it's something you always, I had to do it in 2016, briefly before I had surgery. I actually got moved up when we were on the road in Low A and Fort Wayne to Lake Elsinore, and made just the one appearance, and that's when I got hurt. But, so since then, I've always kind of been prepared for, it can happen at any time kind of a thing, especially if you're throwing well. You try to not get in the habit of, box score watching and looking up at the level that's above you and seeing, who's struggling, who's doing well, and each good outing that you have being like, oh, maybe this is the one where, I get to go up. You try not to get into that routine, but with that being said, I feel like I try to always be prepared for, maybe after this game they send someone up, and it could be me, whatever. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. With each year that's gone by, I felt like I've done a better job of really only taking the essentials with me, for the season. My first couple of years, I kind of overpacked, and you realize you don't need that much stuff, because you spend, 10, 12 hours of your day at the ballpark, and you don't need nearly as much clothes and different outfits and whatever as you think you might need. You wear your collared shirt and jeans or pants or shorts or whatever to the stadium for 20 minutes, and you wear them back home, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the time, you're in your baseball gear. So I've learned to consolidate what I have. It's basically a big, like 50-pound duffel bag, a carry-on suitcase, and a backpack, and that's what I have my life in for 6 months out of the year. And if they need me to pack up one night and be on a flight the next morning, I'm able to do that and pack up in about an hour and be ready to go. So with that being said, obviously it's always a great feeling to get promoted, and it doesn't really matter the level, because it's a small reward for a lot of hard work that you've put in. It's not the the end goal yet, obviously, but getting to Double A it was a big step. Like I said, I'm looking forward to going back next year and proving that last year was kind of an aberration with my poor performance, but it was neat. It also just kind of happened to coincide of when one of the bad wildfires was going on in Southern California, so I was kind of lucky to get out of there when I did. In early August, it was getting bad. I remember the last game I was at, like, there was smoke covering nearly the whole field. We thought we were maybe going to have to cancel games, so I was kind of fortunate of the timing of it all to be able to get out in that time frame too.
When you went to Double A, and albeit you were not pitching as well as you would like, but did you find that the hitters were on another level, that they had increased compared to what you were familiar with in terms of their ability, their knowledge of the game, and how you had to approach them? Yeah,
I think, in the 3 weeks to a month that I was there, I think you kind of see that the hitters are more aware of their strengths and are less likely to attack pitches that they know I guess they're more aware of the pitches that they know they can't drive or do damage with, so they're much more selective, and they'll maybe take a strike. They'll maybe, first pitch fastball in the outer half, they might take it, whereas in A ball, if it's a fastball for a strike, guys are probably going to swing at it. Whether they foul it off, swing and miss, or hit a homer, they're probably going to swing at it, because that's kind of the early phases of hitting that they teach, is be aggressive to fastballs. But at that level, they're not afraid to take a strike here or there, knowing that, I can't do a lot with that pitch. I'll take my chances with him, the pitcher, having to throw 2 more strikes, and I think he's more likely to make a mistake on one of those 2 that I can do something with. So you definitely, from a consistency basis, they'll, in my experience, they'll, capitalize on mistakes a little bit more. But at the same time, it's Double A, they're not superhuman. Like, you can still get them out. If you execute your stuff, you can still win. And so, it's just a lot cleaner level of baseball. You don't see nearly as much sloppiness, throwaways, errors in the infield, stuff like that. The routine plays all get made, and it's just a much cleaner level of baseball, I think. It was a fairly stark difference for me, just noticing how the game flowed. You know, there's routine plays are made, more great plays are made, you know, and you just have to, you know, use scouting reports and stuff to use your strengths to beat hitters. You know, they're certainly better and more disciplined, but like I said, it's not like they're superhuman. They're also in AA for a reason. So, you know, there's a reason they're not in the big leagues yet, and you can get them out just as easily as you can at any other level if you take care of your business.
How about your pitching repertoire at this point and some things you'd like to improve or add to that? So my slider kind of became my bread and butter off-speed pitch this past season and turned into a nice weapon for me. My curveball kind of came and went throughout the season. It was good in stretches and not so strong in stretches. So consistency with that pitch for the length of the season would be an area of improvement. And as a reliever, don't have a ton of opportunities to throw changeups because mine isn't exactly a plus weapon for me, but that's also an area of development where I would like to improve on this year, especially against left-handed hitters. There's just to have a different look to show them, to maybe get them off my fastball a little bit, to make, I don't really throw 98 like I touched on. And so if you can kind of slow their bats down a little bit and mix in a changeup now and then to just, keep that in the back of their head, it can make, 93 or 94 really play up a little bit more and seem like it's 98 if you can throw a good changeup in there. But overall, it's just, getting strike one has always been important for me and continuing to do that and, control the at-bat by getting strike one and being able to dictate the tempo and what you're trying to do with the at-bat. And so just, I guess, overall off-speed consistencies, especially with the curveball and the changeup, and just being able to locate fastballs at a higher percentage. Guys miss all the time, but it's about minimizing those misses, making the misses smaller. If you're aiming, down and away, miss it down and away. Don't miss it middle in, because otherwise it might end up over the fence. So just small things like that I think, every pitcher is always striving for, but with each year that goes by, the little things, the day-by-day reps add up, and you have to, be diligent with that, and you will improve. You touched about scouting reports, Elliot, and of course you're facing a lot of guys that you've never seen before and may not ever see again in minor league baseball. How do you handle a scouting report with so many guys that you really are unfamiliar with?
Yeah, in the beginning of the season, you kind of go based on if you've seen a guy in the past at another level. Otherwise, you just kind of fall back to your strengths. And let's say, he beats you a couple times, then you make the necessary adjustments from there. But a lot, like in the Texas League and the California League, they're only 8-team leagues, so you end up seeing these guys a ton throughout the year. So by the All-Star break, you've probably played each guy, each team at least 2 series probably. So 6 games, you've probably faced everyone twice. So you should have an idea of what their strengths are and what they don't like to do, and at the same time they know what your strengths are and what you don't like to do. So at that point it kind of becomes a chess match and a little bit more difficult. I remember right before I think it was actually my last outing before I got moved up last year, it was against Rancho, and their shortstop was a nice player, but I'd kind of had his number all year, and he struggled with hitting my slider, and so I threw it to him early and often, pretty much every time I faced him, and I just happened to fall behind 3-0 on him in this particular at bat, and with two of them were close that missed, and he laid off them, because it was August, and at that time we had played each other probably 20 times. And so I was like, okay, it's 3-0. I'm just going to throw another slider in there and just try to get back in this count. Well, he backed off the plate a little bit and assumed I was going to throw another slider, and he hit a homer on 3-0 pitch, and I was stunned. I was like, well, what's going on? But that's kind of the thing that happens when you play a guy so frequently throughout the year, and he knows what you do and you know what he doesn't like to do, and adjustments get made, and sometimes the hitter wins, but that's how it goes. So a lot of times it's just paying attention throughout the course of the year, because you just play the same team so much that you need to be able to decipher what guys don't like to do what and pitch to those weaknesses.
Elliot, by playing in the California League this year, you had a chance to see a lot of Daulton Varsho. Had a big year for the Visalia Ball Club until his injury. But tell us what you saw from Daulton and how you think his game progressed this year.
Yeah, we saw him, I think it was like the second series of the year, because they were in the Northern Division, we were in the Southern Division, and I think he he really had a great series against us. I can't remember if he hit 1 or 2 homers, but was just all over the ballpark, stealing bases, throwing guys out, and played great. Was really the difference maker in that series. And then he had the hamate injury, broke the bone in his wrist or hand, and we didn't see him the second time we went up there. But then finally, I think the last series when I got moved up, he was there and was playing, I think, either every other day or 2 out of 3 or something, and was just kind of getting his swing back. He wasn't quite grooving quite yet, but he's really, really good. And to do what he did in only, I think it was like 85 games versus the 130 or 140 that he might have played is really impressive. If you average those out to full season totals, it's a pretty dominant season, and there's a reason he's so highly ranked on a lot of prospect lists, because he can do a lot of different things from the catching position that you don't see. He can easily steal 20, 30 bags in a season that you don't see that out of the catching position. He can hit close to 300 or over 300 and hit 20 to 30 homers too. That's stuff, that's production you don't see at the catching position at the highest level very often. And I was really impressed with his defensive abilities behind the plate. He threw a lot more guys out than, granted, it had been a long time since I had seen him catch regularly, obviously being 2 years older than him in high school, and he's grown up and filled out and gotten stronger, since then. And then when we played the one time in college, I don't think he was catching. So I was really impressed from a footwork and arm strength standpoint of him being able to throw out runners at a really, really good clip, not just an average clip, like a big league level clip that, a lot of the people in the scouting industry and whatever may have said that they didn't think he could stick at catcher long term. Well, I'm no professional scout, but based on what I saw last year, he was one of the best at throwing guys out that we played all season. And to be able to do that and be able to run and hit for power it's a really special skill set.
Marshfield's Elliot Ashbeck, who expects to play for the San Diego Padres AA Farm Club at Amarillo, Texas in 2019. This is Gene DeLisio for WDLB and WOSQ.